This episode is brought to you by StartingStrongman.com, your source for information on training and competing in strongman, along with the products that you need to do so. Go to store.startingstrongman.com to shop. Also, visit our sponsors at startingstrongman.com/sponsors and use the affiliate links through Amazon, Rogue, etc. to support this show and Starting Strongman. This week, I talked to Donna Moore, who recently won World's Strongest Woman, and she also won the Arnold Amateur World Championship earlier this year. So she is on quite a roll competing. And without further ado, let's talk to Donna Moore. Welcome to Strong Talk Podcast. I'm Kalle Beck, joined by Donna Moore, World's Strongest Woman. How are you doing today, Donna?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
It's going good. So you competed, was it last weekend? No, I have a hard time keeping with the right time at World's Strongest Woman.
Last Saturday.
Yeah, last Saturday. And where are you from?
I'm from the UK. I'm from Yorkshire.
Yeah, and how far was the contest from you?
For a change, I was lucky, and it was only about an hour and a half, 2 hours in the car.
Yeah, so you're able to pretty much sleep in your own bed and all that.
Yeah, I just went down the day before just so I would be organised because my timekeeping ability is not fantastic. So I just thought, well, at least I better not be late for the World's Strongest Woman.
Yeah, it's kind of an important, kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I talked to Kristen Rhodes last week, and we talked a lot about how this is the first official World's Strongest Woman since 2003. So there was other world championships. You also won the Arnold earlier this year, which is a similar level of competition.
Yeah.
But did it feel different knowing that this is has the official license to use the name World's Strongest Woman for the first time since 2003, and it was in kind of like a little stadium? Did it feel different than other high level contests you've done?
Yeah, I think it did. Well, first of all, I suppose, like you say, because it hasn't been on in its official capacity for so long, and it wasn't even in the sport then. I'd only ever just watched it. So to be able to take part in it now has been pretty amazing. And yeah, like you said, it was in a little stadium, and people had actually bought tickets to come and watch the women and the World's Strongest Man Masters. So it was nice to put on a show for people who actually paid their money to come and spectate. They weren't just their relatives and stuff as well, actual paying customers, so to speak.
Yeah, it makes you feel like a real athlete in that aspect. And I think it's great that the sport is going in that direction where you put on a lot of time you'll do a contest, and that's how I always was. I don't know, I always liked a big crowd. It's probably the part, the show part of me, those are the contests I remember when there was actual people watching, even if it was at an expo and it happened to just be people that didn't come specifically for that. But it always made me then want to perform. Are you similar? Do you thrive off a big crowd, or?
Yeah, it's good to have people there, to show them, what people can actually do, especially what women can actually lift, because I suppose mainly now they've only ever seen the World's Strongest Man on the TV. They've never really seen the women, doing that. Obviously, it was broadcast on television alongside World's Strongest Man. I think 2002, 2003. I think it was even in the same place, but it was so long ago that people don't really remember, seeing that. So it's just good to bring it to the forefront again, I think. And then obviously with it being live streamed right across the internet, it was accessible to everybody as well.
Yeah, the only problem I had with that, it was on at 4 a.m. my time, so I caught the stones when I woke up.
Yeah, I know the time difference it sucks, but
yeah.
It was still that it was still there, and on that level for people to see.
No, and it's awesome, and of course Flow Elite, they're doing a good job of actually live streaming all these contests, and that's why I made a post because when I was covering World's Strongest Man, which of course is not live streamed for TV reasons and all that,
Yeah.
And I'm doing all the updates for it. Every single post is, why isn't this live streamed? Why isn't this live streamed? So I'm sure everyone's gonna, wake up at 4 a.m. to watch, World's Strongest Woman and the Masters, the 40 plus guys go, but which they won't because a lot of people did, but I feel like the kind of people that don't know that World's Strongest Man isn't live streamed
Yeah,
aren't gonna they're not gonna put the time in to watch it, let alone pay to watch it anyways. It's just people want to complain, but it is a great step forward and something that I've talked about, and friends of mine have talked about for a long time that we've all wanted was to have this kind of coverage of strongman, and it's awesome to see, and it's awesome to see that the women are being put in a big light again, and I think that's the side of the sport in the past 3 years that has just grown immensely.
definitely it has.
So, um, did you play any sports or have an athletic background before getting into strongman or strongwoman?
Uh,
Same thing.
no, I didn't. When I was younger, I used to swim, but not to any great level really. I had a horse actually, and I was more interested in that than I was doing to do sport. To be fair, so I didn't do anything really at all. Um, I didn't compete in anything like that. I just started going to the gym actually after I'd had my kids, I suppose, and it just sort of progressed from there really.
So you just basically started going to the gym to get to get in shape, and were you?
Yeah, just to get in shape and meet new people because I lived away from like my family
Mhm.
at the time, and just I just thought, well, why not? Just want to lose weight, get stronger, and just have some fun, I suppose.
When you started, did you start doing like the kind of powerlifting compound movements, or were you just doing the
No, believe it
basic
or
gym
not,
stuff?
from like my uncoordinated athletic ability, I used to do like it's called like body attack. It's like aerobics nearly and body pump, which is like exercise to music but with weights. And if you ever see me try to dance or anything, you'd be surprised I could actually do anything to any music at all.
So it's like so your start to becoming world's strongest woman is basically like jazzercise.
Yeah, more or less.
That's great. When was it that you figured you have to have some good amount of natural ability to be strong. I'm sure.
Yeah.
When was that moment where you're like, oh, I'm stronger than most every even probably some of the guys here when you're
Yeah, I
getting
think
into lifting.
when I was doing these classes, and some of them where they had, free weights in them and stuff, and I just realized then that I was stronger than like most of the people, especially the women that were there, but most of the guys as well. Um, and then I just sort of stepped away from doing that and got a program and went to the gym. And one of the guys that worked in there, he actually showed me how to deadlift, and straight away I thought, oh, I like to do this, and I was good at it, you know, more or less straight away. And I just carried on from there, changed to a different gym, and got like a more sort of like the compound movement programming because it wasn't like a commercial gym. And through Facebook, a lady had sent me a message and asked if I would be interested in doing a strongwoman competition actually. And I just thought, well, I know what the world's strongest man is, and maybe this would be quite cool. So why not give it a go? So I did.
Well, about what year was this?
This was 2012.
Oh, it's not even that long ago.
No, not at all.
So did
Not
you
at all.
did you end up doing your first contest in 2012?
Yeah, it was. It was like the April of 2012, and it was called like a British International. There was some people from Iceland and Germany and stuff there. Um, it was in Scotland where I used to live,
Hmm.
uh, and I just loved it. Loved everything about it. I didn't. I think I came fourth actually, but it was just so much fun, and I just thought, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Well, it's amazing when you find something that you're good at. It makes it fun in a way. I found, if it comes somewhat naturally, of course you work really hard, but you're like, oh, like I feel like a lot of the people that are, especially a lot of the women that are getting into the sport, a lot of them are coming from CrossFit, and they might where if you were more on the endurance side, you're probably going to keep on with CrossFit, but then you realize that the part that they are good at is the lifting heavy part. They're better than everyone else. Then they kind of start veering more that direction because you're just naturally gonna, find more enjoyment in the part that you seem to be good at. It's the same way where people, if they have an event they're bad at, they tend to not do it. But if they're good deadlifters, they'll, every other video on Instagram is them deadlifting.
Yeah, I fall into that trap.
We all do. We all have our pet lift. And it's it strokes the ego. You never want to show people that thing that you struggle with, and you find kind of embarrassing.
That's right.
Yeah. So you did your first contest. Then how much did you have? Did you find a gym before that where they had the implements and you started training with them, or did you just go into that contest kind of blind?
No, the gym had stuff. It was, the standard events. I think there was a yoke of farmers. It was a one-arm dumbbell press. There was a deadlift for reps. Just, stuff that was more, I suppose, accessible at the time. There was a lot of gyms have a lot of the stuff then, but they didn't. The gym that I used to go to, we didn't have a specific yoke, but we just sort of like made a makeshift one, and I just sort of went with the best intention just to give it all a go, really. Um, and it worked out quite well, and it was fun, and to meet the other ladies, to ask them loads of questions about it and stuff. It was really good.
Yeah, that's always the best part of the competition is the people you meet, and then you're just friends because you have that common interest, and I feel that's what keeps you going back more so than anything else for me personally.
Yeah, definitely. As well, it was like motivating for me to see, well, yeah, fair enough. I came fourth, but my deadlift was quite a bit, behind, and I just didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to be a competitor at all, or what to bring to eat, or what to wear in Scotland when it rained all the time while you're still doing sport, and what shoes to have. You know, it was a big learning curve, but a great experience, really, and that's what made it for me. The actual ladies that were there, um, just showing me what they could do, and I just wanted to be more like that, really. So I just kind of carried on.
Yeah, all those variables that people don't think about when you start out with it. There's so
Yeah,
many. That's what I said before. Is I never realized how uneven parking lots were until I started competing in strongman.
yeah. And so you have to take a yoke across there, a
Yeah,
bumpy parking lot that looks like it's flat, but it's not.
yeah. Or you're pulling a truck and you see you know everyone's stopping at the same spot because there's that little dip where it just starts to rise 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah,
You get really good at surveying what some asphalt looks like, and just little things.
that's right, definitely.
And that's why it's nice to compete in somewhere where you just did, and like in Doncaster at World's Strongest Woman, where it's an actual like a sports arena.
Yeah, it was all completely flat, and obviously it was inside, so it didn't matter what the weather did, and everything was the same for everybody.
So when was the point where you made that like big step up in competition, like at your first like high level contest that you went to and either placed or won?
Um, I think. Well, I suppose, did I go to? I think it was the first time I won Britain's Strongest Woman. I think that was it, and that was my goal at the start. Um,
It's a good
when I first
goal.
started, I did think, I would like to be Britain's Strongest Woman, and I did, and I won that. But then after that, I think I came to Arnold after that, the first time, or
Yeah,
did I not? I can't remember
yeah.
which way round I did it.
So did you win Britain's Strongest Woman in 2013 or 14?
Oh yeah, 14. I went in 14 and 15, and I didn't enter it this year because it was too close to World's Strongest Woman for me.
Sure. And then you went to the Arnold World Championships in 15 and 16?
Yeah, 15 and 16, yeah. Yeah, so I went after the second time that I'd won Britain's then, because I think the first time I didn't think that I would be ready for it. Um, Basically, I just needed a bit more time, I think, to get a bit more experience. And even then, when I went the first time, it still like completely blew my mind. It was just so much. quicker and fast paced, and the ladies were like still another level,
Yeah, I think I've noticed that the contests seem to be put on slightly different between over in England and Europe and here in America. What do you feel like are the major differences?
I think possibly because you just have so many more people that do strongman. Um, there's so many more people to enter, so therefore you have more kit, and then obviously the event's got to go quicker, otherwise people will be there for days and days,
Hmm.
doing it. Where here in the UK, yeah, it's gaining in popularity, but they still go to some events and they've only got one, like one set of everything, so you still have to wait around. It's not as fast paced. Or before you knew it at the Arnold, it was your turn again. You just seem to have taken your stuff off and got a drink, and it was like the next event sort of thing. Where it's definitely not like that here
Yeah,
at all.
that's how I always felt at the times I've competed at nationals in the Arnold was it you're almost where I like the aspect where you get to kind of put on a show and like I like that aspect like at World's Strongest Woman where there's what 14 15 of you. That's a good number. They can introduce everyone, Colin's hyping it up and everything, but if there's 40 50 competitors in or even 20 in each class, there what at the Arnold there's probably what 60 to 80 total competitors. It needs to go quick, so it's almost like a cattle call in a way
Yeah,
where I just felt like you're getting through the day and it's like, okay, I'm done now. I have to think about, I just did log press, gonna take up, now I got to do yokes. I got to take off my weightlifting shoes, put on my yoke shoes, change this belt. Like that, I just go straight into that, and then start warming up for the next event. You don't have it's less like a production,
yeah.
if that makes
I mean, it was,
sense.
it was fairly quick in Doncaster, I suppose, because we didn't start until about lunchtime, and we had the masters as well in between. So it was like an event for us and then event for the guys.
Hmm.
So basically, you just had to be ready. So it was probably quicker than a regular competition here in the UK, but it was better. I felt it was fine. It wasn't too rushed and it wasn't too slow. It was good.
Yeah, from what I could tell, of course, watching the Stones, and I went back and watched some of the archive footage. I haven't had a chance to watch the whole contest, but it seemed like it had a good flow to it, and the
Yeah.
crowd was involved. They knew what was going on. They kind of knew, who was there and what was at stake for the most part. Which and
That's
then
right. And obviously commentating and stuff as well. So that helps.
yeah, I don't know how Colin does it. He just has so much energy the whole time.
He just doesn't stop talking.
Even if he has nothing to say.
No, that's right. All the
But
time.
but I think that's the key. Um, so when you went to the Arnold the first time, how how did you end up placing? Sorry, because I don't quite remember.
I came fifth. It was quite close, I think, between like third and fifth. So I suppose on the outset, I was fairly pleased with that actually for my first ever outing. I'd never even been to America before, so the first place I went was Arnold. So um, I was pleased. Yeah,
So, but the problem with fifth is it's almost the worst spot to
you are
get at
right.
the Arnold.
It's the worst spot to get the Arnold, especially when it was close as well. I was like, oh, damn it.
Yes, because only the top four qualify for day two on the main stage.
Yep.
And as someone who's never made the main stage, the closest I ever got was sixth on the first day by like a point and a half. Is
Oh, it's so.
watching the other four people is one of the worst feelings I've had as an athlete.
Yeah, it was painful.
But the whole time I'm just thinking like I could have done that better.
I think
But
I was still so much in awe. I was obviously
yeah,
I was you have to have like draw the positives out of it. So I was pleased with fifth for my first ever outing, but like you say, when you're sitting there watching, you just think, oh, I could have had a good go at that log. I really could
yeah,
have had a good go.
yeah. But you're probably also not quite as much of an asshole as I am, because so
Yes.
you're probably a nicer person. So like you said it a lot nicer. You're like, oh, that would have been fun up there versus me. I'm like a little different mentality, but of course, that's going to motivate you for the next time, which it clearly did because you came back and you know it looked you kind of, I think you won most of the events, didn't you?
Yeah, I think well, the frame hold, I came second in the frame hold. That was it was like it was heavy.
It looked a
um
little heavier than than listed.
yes, well, I picked it up and I was like, whoa. That was my thought, even with Eddie Hall stood right beside me shouting at me. I was like, wow. Um, and I think just my arms were tired after that stone of steel. It's so much different to a regular stone. So, but and my deadlift, I didn't do so well in the deficit deadlift, and I practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. So I don't know what went wrong there, but the rest of them, yeah, I think so. I did win. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a pretty dominating performance. How many of the women also competed at that you just competed against last weekend at Worlds? Because I think there's a
Um,
couple.
there was Brooke.
Yeah, she competed the year before, and were some of the Ukrainian girls also at the Arnold?
Yeah, both of the Ukrainian girls were at the Arnold, and they were both there as well. And that was from the heavyweight people, but
Hmm.
um, Leif, Leifer, she was in.
In the
She
middleweight.
competed as well, but she's obviously from the middleweight, so I didn't directly compete against her. Anyway, but um, yeah, I don't know who else. Oh no, one of the other British girls, she had been to Arnold as well the same year as me. She was there too. Two of them actually, two of the British girls had been to Arnold as well.
So
In the
yeah, both contests were similar as far as the the level of talent and the competitors,
Mhm.
which is it's kind of nice because it's getting to that point now where there in the past couple of years there's been more international competitions where you can kind of see like, oh, how would X compete against Y versus other than the heavyweights who obviously have a circuit and it's an established kind of pro circuit. It's getting more that way with the women and some of the other classes. We're actually able to see the Britain's strongest man, the strongest woman versus America's strongest woman, et cetera, and kind of see who truly is you know the best in the world, or at
Yeah.
least on that day. So also, I think you got an invite, but what did you think of the there's it's kind of there's like three worlds contests that are going on within a month or two of each other
Hmm.
with the strongest woman in the world. And I think over here, the United States the United States Strongman is putting on another one coming up. Did you catch any of the contests for the one that was, I think, about 2 3 weeks ago at this point, the strongest woman in the world?
I did. I watched some of it again, just like clips on the feeds of the people that were competing. So I did watch some of that.
What did you think of the performances there?
I think I think all their performances were, they were good, and it was heavy as well.
Yeah,
I think it was
one
like a 90-kilo log for reps for the women and a 60-kilo dumbbell. There was the yoke that was about the similar weight, and they had like a massive keg run, like running
it just
a
kept
mile.
going.
Yeah,
It was like five kegs, and the first two were about 75, or the first one was 75 feet. Yeah, it was a long medley.
yeah, that's
But
right.
at that contest, what I was most impressed by was the depth in the middleweights, which is still 180 pounds. And I talked with Kristen about this last week. Is I and Lifa kind of showed that where she got sixth. Despite not being she's under 180 pounds. Where I think if you just mixed everyone together, it's still going to be pretty competitive.
Definitely. They're so they're so strong. The middle, the middleweight ladies. All of them were quite close. I think again, like they were at the Arnold. It was the same. I think was it not the same top four,
Uh,
but in a different
pretty
order?
much. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was. I think it actually was. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it actually was just kind of rearranged a bit, which is awesome to see because as a sport, it depends on the events and the day. Everyone's going to have their day, so they're all pretty much. I think any of those women could win on on the right circumstances in that group. But yeah, they were really close.
yeah.
And and uh and Daniel
They
Danny
definitely were like. I watched Danny's log, and she
yeah.
just didn't stop. You know,
I had a lot of
the whole
people
time.
there's because of course I shared it on the starting strongman accounts, and there's someone has to say it, and people are like, I don't think that really weighs that much. I'm like, well, I'd like to think that too myself, but I think it
Yeah,
did.
I know.
If you watch everyone else go, you could tell it was 175 pounds. It
Yeah,
was
that's
quite
right.
heavy. It was heavy. So when did so you won Britain's Strongest Woman, and at what point did you start training with and you got hooked up? It seems like you're training kind of alongside like Darren Sadler and Eddie Hall and stuff like that, and people like that every now and then. You get like a more serious group. When did you start training with all those people?
I think it was mainly for the first build up for the Arnold, just because I've got kids and I go to work and stuff, working shifts. I just try and fit my training in at that time. As many places that they basically would let me go. So I worked with Darren a lot for doing, log, and he's got really nice stuff to deadlift with. Obviously, the bar that they Eddie uses for the deadlift records and everything. So it's nice to get down and use really, really good kit.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but then I've been starting to train with Jenny Todd as well. She like written my program, and I train with Gemma, and she does my conditioning and stuff like that. So I think just a mixture of like the different people, and then my own like knowledge and a bit more experience has just sort of, made me better, I suppose.
Yeah, it's always good to get as fresh takes from on different aspects from multiple people. I feel like almost most anyone can teach you something, is what I found. It
Yeah,
even
definitely.
besides the level of competitor, of course, having people like Darren, who's been to World's Strongest Man and promotes a lot of the contests out there, and Gemma, and all the high level people. I feel like you can kind of learn something. Everyone has their own little, even if they don't say it, if you just watch and pay attention. That's how I learned a lot of stuff. You just kind of pay attention and you say, oh, why did that look easy when this person did it? And you
Yeah,
you, you kind of break it down, which I
and
don't
I
I
mean
don't
it's a good atmosphere as well. If you depending on where you go for what thing. When I was working for the Arnold and stuff, it for the first time I just used to go and do this just the circus dumbbell just with Darren. So it was just like a whole session just doing that. And you want to try your best because you want to do well, but you want to do well for the person that's giving you their time, as and teaching you. So it was he was good to me then as well.
sure. Yeah, it seems like you have a great support system. What gym do you mostly train at? Like, I know you train with Jenny Todd. That's your main group, right?
Yeah, I train up in Spartan Performance doing events, and then um, I go up there maybe one other time a week. It's a bit of a drive for me. It's about an hour each way. So again, it just depends on my shifts, but at least one session up there doing like events, and then trying to fit something else in during the week. Do conditioning work with Gemma, and that's at her own like gym facility as well, but that's like another drive the other direction kind of thing. And then I just go to a commercial gym just to do all the stuff that I can there, just around my family and like work commitments and children commitments.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to manage it and still leave a normal life. No,
That's right.
no one's really a pro athlete at this time, and some people, they either work or own a gym, so that they're kind of in it. Makes it a little easier, but yeah, you have to find time, and that's one of the things that kind of irks me a lot when people say they'd like to train this, but their only gym around them is commercial gym. You can still There's still weights there. You can still get stronger, and even if you can only make it out once a week or even once every other week, and make a drive on a one of your days off. That's kind of what you have to do. That's what most
Yeah,
people have to
completely.
do.
And the same with the commercial gym that I use. They have a rack and bumper plates and things, and I can go an overhead press and accessory work and stuff to that. They've just put like a little sled in there, and you just have to go and do the best with what you've, like you say, with what you've got. And I think people are saying that they don't have time or they can't go anywhere. Well, if you want to compete and you want to do well, then you have to make the time. Um, I don't see that as like a valid reason.
Yeah, it's either worth it to you or it's not. It's
yeah, I completely agree.
it's a
I have kids and I'm by myself.
mhm.
We just organize our life that we can fit it all in, and that's just what you have to do if you want it.
Yeah, definitely. And I know there's times for me with my own training where I haven't made those things because at that time it just wasn't interesting, you know?
Yeah,
So, and that's fine too, but you just have to be honest. I think it goes a long way in life just to be honest with what you actually want.
yeah,
So like if
definitely.
you actually want to, try to compete at a high level like that, then you're gonna do what needs to be done, and or else it's really not what you want.
No,
It's
I
not
agree.
easy. But going a little more in depth with World's Strongest Woman that was last weekend. What there was, you had 5 events. You had heavy Viking press, heavy yoke. There was the medley and the max 18-inch deadlift and stones.
Yep.
What were you? And of course, you had a very high level of competition. I think this is the first time that you and Kristen Rhodes actually competed, or no, you guys competed at the Arnold in
Yeah,
2015.
yeah,
But
in 15. And also I went to Finland. She went to compete in Finland one year and I met her there, but I had no idea what I was doing. It was awful for me.
uh,
But I think that's what my main thing is when I went to compete in Finland.
uh
I just sort of ended up there by default, really, and I just wanted to go, but I wasn't ready for it, and it was like I was in Helsinki, so I just call it like hell in Helsinki. It was awful. But when I saw her compete, and just how good she was, I was like, no, that's it. If I want to compete at that level, then I'm going to have to be like that. And basically, that was the turning point for me to decide, right, I'm going to go and seek out places to train and sort it all out because I want to do well and I need to be like that.
yeah, it's inspirational sometimes when you see someone and you actually see in person the level that you have to be at,
Yep.
and face such when you see a high level athlete, and of course you have to have that belief that you're also going to be able to achieve that, which
Yep.
some people see that and they kind of get defeated by it. They go, oh well, I don't know how I could do that, which it's the wrong way of thinking.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I saw her and I just thought I was blown away. I just couldn't believe it, and I was like, "Yep, I have to be like that."
That's awesome. But going into this weekend, what was your main focus on which events? Which one were you was there any event you were kind of worried about that you knew you'd have to keep up on to ensure that you'd win the title, which I'm sure what you really wanted.
Yeah, I was a bit more worried about the yoke. It's never really very particularly awesome for me, but um, initially it was meant to be like a drop and turn, so like two ways, which would have suited me better.
Hmm.
Rather than just like one straight sprint. I would have preferred a longer distance, but it must have been like a time restriction or something that they just changed the distance.
So
Uh,
so they made it
so I
like a
knew that
straight
was going to
shot.
be, yeah, because I know Kristen, Brooke, one of the girls from the UK, the Ukrainian ladies. Obviously, they're all very good at the yoke, and I was a bit like, oh dear, it's not going to be great for me. So I just had to give it my best shot on that, I suppose.
How'd you end up placing in the yoke?
I think it was fifth, fifth
Okay.
or fifth or sixth. I'm not really sure. I just sort of like put it put it to the side and just had to move on because the deadlift was coming up and I knew that that's it's obviously it's a good event for me.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I just had to do the best that I could with the with the placing that came in the yoke because it went in that order. Where you placed is when you came out on the deadlift, and just had to concentrate on that. I mean, I suppose my yoke run for me was kind of positive. I suppose it's probably the quickest that I've gone with that weight, and I didn't drop it and I didn't wobble. So that I've drawn that positive from it.
Yeah, it's if you can PR, it's always a good day, even if it was one of your lowest placings of the day, or probably your lowest in that. But yeah, the first event was the Viking press. That was lowered a little bit on contest day, wasn't it? The
Yeah, I
weight.
think that it was lowered. I'm not exactly sure what to. Um, I think it was probably a good call because it's such a big Viking press. I don't think that many people would have got the weight because obviously the pivot never happens. It's just such a
Yeah.
high lockout. We've never taken the weight. So I suppose for competitive purposes and the purposes of showing the audience what people are doing, it was probably a good call.
Yeah, I think what I heard, it was about 90 kilos was the weight lifted, which is still, that's not light by any means, but I think it was supposed to be about 115, which
Yeah,
is
it was sort of like programmed at 115,
pretty
but
absurd. That's
it was just it wouldn't have just because the Viking press was so big. If it maybe had a lower pivot, then maybe fine, but not when it's just so huge.
sure, but I think it ended up being a good weight overall. Like I think the top performances were about what 14 or so.
Yeah, Kristen just stopped because she didn't need to do any more. Um, then I think it was a lady from the Ukraine, and then there was lots of us all on the same reps for third.
Yeah, and you got what, 12 or 13?
13, yeah.
Yeah, there's always, it seems like, especially in overhead events, there's always that log jam where
Yeah,
3 4 people tie at the same weight. Then of course you went into the yoke, and then what I think was one of the cooler events of the day was the silver dollar deadlift. The 18-inch pole, the partial deadlift, and of course which was for a max, which is always fun. So
oh,
how'd
it
that
was.
go? How'd that go as far as you're going through the weight, and then it starts to dwindle down? It seems like 300 kilos was about where everyone, like, there's a big tie at like 6 or 8 athletes hit 300, and then it goes up from there. How was that?
Um, it was fine, I suppose for me. I'm saying that, but um, I think that they called that right as well. Otherwise, the jumps would have been. There's just so many jumps. 300, and then I don't know if it went to 310 and 320, 330. I can't even remember. I just know that I got to 330 and then just called it quits.
And then one of the competitors went on to hit 5 more kilos.
Yeah,
Right.
she did. But sort of like had a chat with Jenny and stuff, and decided just not to take it. I maybe wouldn't have even got it because my 300 was not very pretty at this. 330 wasn't very pretty at this. The best of times, but it was just for the overall contest, really. Not didn't want to expend any more energy when I knew the next two events would be good for me and I needed the points. And the ladies' sort of points wouldn't have really affected my placing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
So
she
it
was she
was like a
wasn't.
tactical.
Yeah, no, and that's how you have to compete to win, is even if, like, you see Brian Shaw all the time, he goes, there's a world, like at the Arnold, there's a world record deadlift, and of course Eddie goes out and pulls it, and then Brian calls it, and then almost he was about to win the whole contest, but it was the tactical reason it's not worth picking up that point, which
No.
I guess maybe it would have been, but but it was, I still feel the best tactical reason. And like when you have an extremely heavy duck walk, and which is really hard on the hamstrings, and you're doing a partial deadlift like that, it's probably better to save it, because
Yeah.
that's what Kristen was
And that's
saying
and that's
is.
what I thought with, obviously, with the stones coming up at the end, and I just knew that I don't know, well, that I would need to get to lift all of them. I just wanted to make sure that I would be able to do that in a good time, as well. So just trying to be a bit smart about it, actually.
Hmm. Yeah, it's always smart. And then how did you go in that medley?
I came second in that.
So you picked up some more
Yeah,
points
yeah,
there.
yeah, that's right. So that was another good event for me. Although I dropped the farmers the first time I picked it up, I just sort of like felt a bit dizzy, but I just grabbed it and just ran with it and I didn't drop it. Once it was up, it was quite a low pickup. Once it was up, it was fine.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, and that was
uh,
what, 105 kilos. That's 230 pounds. That's a good amount of weight to pick up, especially after you did over 700, partial deadlift. It's gonna
yeah,
feel really heavy, and a duck walk.
and they
So
just duck is just awful, just in general. It's
I
it's
think
just
it, I think it should be banned.
yeah, I agree with you.
I mean,
I just my legs are like black from it. Even like the sort of like the pattern on the metal is like ingrained in the sides of my leg, you know.
Yeah, you have those. At least it'll always remind you of winning World's Strongest Woman when you look down and those
That's true.
permanent scars.
I'll think about it like that instead.
So going into the last event, the iconic events, the stones, and it was a really cool setup, and it was also the heaviest series I think ever in a strongwoman contest. At least that's what I've been saying. So
Yeah, I think that you're right.
the last one was 140 kilos. That's 308 or so pounds, which would have technically been a world record just not long ago
Yeah.
by itself, until of course you broke that and hold the world record in the max stone lift. But what were the standings? I think were you slightly behind?
Yeah, it was about 1.5 points behind the other Ukrainian girl going into that event. So I knew that I needed them all really, and for her not to do so many of them really, and the other Ukrainian lady as well, just needed her to like either beat her competitor really.
Yeah,
Um, and I wasn't sure how many stones that Kristen would do as well. Um, because she was joint third at the time, I think, going into that event.
yeah. I think she was third or fourth. Yeah, I think with it was all pretty close in that top 3 to 4.
Yeah,
Um, so what what order did you go in the stones? I think you went second to last.
yeah, I did. Yeah, so I got to see everybody else, which was obviously a benefit.
You got to see everyone else but the one competitor in front of you, which
Yeah,
which can be nerve wracking. But you went out there, and I'm sure it didn't feel that way, but it looked like it was a different set than what everyone else had just done from watching.
um, I just knew that I had to do them all, and that was the end of that. And I think I like the setup with it. Having to run between it makes it a bit more interesting. Um, and I just did it, I suppose. I like Atlas stones.
Yeah, I think you finished. This is where, in my memory, I think you did it in 28 seconds. And Lifa got second with 4 stones in just like 27 or 26. So almost, like your time with 5 stones was almost faster than the time with 4 stones, if I remember correctly. Which is so you're flying pretty good there.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was a great performance. And then like you said, you needed a couple people to kind of place in between to pick
yeah,
up that points. And Lifa and Kristen and et cetera, they all, Lifa got second, and then, some of the other competitors do. And it seems like, that the woman, I'm sorry, I'd have to look up her name again. I feel like I should, but she kind of fumbled, I think, on the third stone. And
yeah. She did. And then I did she get? I think she got the third stone. I think she might have got to the fourth stone, but she couldn't lift it.
yeah, but it was late. It was one of the slower times. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
that's right. She was slower.
yeah, it seems like she fumbled. It was, and she looked, and it just, everyone, and that's one of the things, like you're saying, is you can lose points, but you have to know that you just have to keep performing good, because someone's event that they struggle with might be the fifth one when yours is the second. So you
Yeah,
can always pick up those points later on. But
I think it's just
consistent,
trying to be as consistent as you
of course.
can be throughout everything, and trying not to have like a particular week. So a particular week. So yeah, my yoke's not great, but it's not the worst that it could possibly be. And if you can keep everything else, up that you'd always place higher up, then like you say, other people's points and standings and week events can come into play later on in the day, and it did that week, last
Yeah.
week.
And you won, and congratulations again. It was a great performance. And so what's next?
Um, I hadn't really decided, just having a rest. We
Yeah.
have Europe's Strongest Woman, I think, is meant to be in December, but like I found last year, it was quite close to Arnold, and I had to prep for Europe's for December, and then
Hmm.
straight after that competition, basically start the prep for Arnold, because the events weren't even really remotely similar.
Sure.
So it was just too much, really. Um, I want to get my deadlift. I've been chasing like 250 just for ages, but it just hasn't happened yet on the right time. So I'm going to pull that soon. Um, and then I don't know what else to compete in. I might even just leave it until Arnold in
Yeah,
March.
I don't think that that's a bad decision at all. There's you can see like how people like Shaw's very strategic with his selection, where you kind of see some of the other people competing this weekend and that weekend, and they have the added incentive of they tend to be paid to do these contests, but he's still skipping them, and then he goes up and wins worlds. It's a good way to be. You have to be a very strategic, not just like you're saying with your competition, but your competition selection, I feel.
Yeah.
So,
And I would have liked to have come to Florida, but technically that would have been 3 trips to the USA in the space of the year with like Arnold, world strongest woman in the world, and then Arnold again, and it just wasn't something that I was, like able to do. So,
no, it's
I
not.
always wanted to go back to Arnold, and then obviously with the new pro class, it sounds quite interesting. Uh, Just see what happens there, I suppose.
Yeah, so from what I hear, there's going to be a separate like Arnold Pro Strongwoman class, which I would assume you're invited to. I'd hope. So it's going to be slightly different, and you'll actually getting even more recognition. And it's going to be a big step up for strong women. So you're looking forward to that, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Just to, it's great to be involved in like the progression of the sport now, where it's more acceptable or socially acceptable, for women to come in and lift and, be empowered that way. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it's a great time to be in the sport. It's really progressing. From when I started, and I started doing it in like 2007, and we'd be if we saw 5 women at like a local contest I went to, it was like, wow, there's a lot here. And
Yeah,
and then I put on California's Strongest Woman earlier this year, and we had almost 70 competitors. So
I know it's amazing. It really is. And Jenny and I are going to do a seminar in London this weekend, and all the spaces were taken. And again, we're going to do another one in Birmingham, I think next month as well. And it's the same. It's again all the spaces are taken, and that's great because that means more people want to learn and want to be involved.
that's awesome. I was gonna say how could people sign up, but if they're sold out, they're sold out. But if people do want to get a hold of you, follow your training, or even contact you to do a seminar like that, how do they do that? I think it on Instagram,
Yeah,
Facebook.
there's Instagram. I have like my personal Facebook page, and Messenger, or I have an athlete page as well. They could get me on there.
Yeah, and
Oh, it's just
on Facebook it's just Donna Moore, and then on Instagram it's Donna_Moore, MOORE_strongwoman.
yeah.
You got to get rid of those underscores. They're hard.
Are they? Oh, sorry. I think
It's
it's probably because
okay.
it was wrote out and that I wasn't allowed that version.
Sure. There's a weird thing where it seems like the UK based like companies and stuff, they love their underscores. Like I know like SBD's like SBD like underscore USA, and that's how they wanted it for the American one here. And I'm like, that's not how you know what I mean? Like that's not how it's done, like done here. But I don't know what it is. But they
The
just
underscores are upsetting you. Take them away.
I don't even know where that is on the keypad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Donna_Moore_strongwoman on Instagram. Good luck in your future training and competition. Hopefully, see you again at the Arnold. I'll be trying to make the trip out there again. And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much for asking me.
All right, and that's the show. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe on iTunes, give a 5-star rating, and tell your friends.